Businessman Donald Trump falls behind Democratic Hillary Clinton in the U.S. presidential election matchup for November.
Nigeria's central bank removes the currency peg of the naira. Will the move pay off for Africa's biggest economy?
And here in Washington, Africans in the diaspora venture into the ethnic restaurant business, a challenge for any entrepreneur. Africa 54 starts right now. Hello, I'm Esther Githu-Ewart of the Voice of America here for Vincent Makori and coming to you from our global headquarters in Washington.
And I'm Cynthia Are, a Channels Television here in Lagos. Stay with us in the next half hour for news and stories of Nigeria and the world. Well, Nigerians clung to their seats a week ago in anticipation of the Central Bank of Nigeria's new foreign exchange policy. The CBN removed its currency peg on June the 20th to alleviate chronic foreign currency shortages, choking economic growth, and without surprise, the naira slumped sharply against the dollar after the move. Will the new policy pay off in the long run? Well, here's what some analysts had to say about it.
Can you see that?
The central bank has said it may inject foreign exchange into the interbank market to boost liquidity.
We are going to have different sources of inflow or supply to the market. Autonomous sources, the oil companies, the banks themselves, the CBN being the big player.
The CEO of Adedikpe and Associates, Dr. Biodun Adedikpe, also shares the view of Robert Omotunde. However, he explains that if there's going to be a lasting change, import substitution is inevitable.
When you have more liquidity, it then also will translate into funding of transactions. That means the funds will readily be available to fund those transactions, especially given the structure of our economy. Because to a large extent, we are still import dependent. So which, of course, now dovetails into the direction of government's policy, which is to ensure that this economy is able to produce more.
Nigerians who need the currency urgently might need to play the waiting game, as the $4 billion backlog of demand could take 4 weeks to clear. Nigeria's central bank is reasonably optimistic that the naira will settle at around 250 to the dollar after an initial period of weakness following a flotation. The economy, which contracted by 0.4% in the first quarter, faces its worst crisis in decades after the decline in oil prices since 2014 and last year's introduction of a currency peg. With a likely sharp fall for the naira, Nigerian products will become relatively cheap and imports more expensive, which should stimulate the domestic economy, but will likely light a fire under already rising inflation.
This is expected to normalize as exchange rates also correct, so the business can get back his groove. Even from the angle of fiscal policy, state governments are going to have more money, because of the dollar proceeds that had been exchanged at 197 or 200, before. What we are going to see now is some mileage that the states, subnationals can get from this new FX arrangement at 260, for example.
The president resisted the temptation to devalue the naira for more than a year, despite other major oil producers, including Russia, Kazakhstan and Angola, allowing currencies to fall after crude prices collapsed.
You're watching Africa 54. From fiscal policy now to presidential politics. Recent polls show Republican Donald Trump slipping behind Democratic Hillary Clinton in November's U.S. presidential election. Trump is battling to move beyond recent controversies and is intensifying his attacks on Clinton. Here's VOA's national correspondent, Jim Malone.
If you listen to Hillary, you'll find out yourself.
Donald Trump's supporters and opponents argue about immigration outside a Trump rally near Houston.
I never voted. How many Muslims do you know?
No matter where Trump goes, he draws legions of supporters, but plenty of detractors as well. Even as Trump struggles to unite the Republican Party, he's shifting his focus to the presumptive Democratic Party nominee, Hillary Clinton. Trump labeled the former Secretary of State a world-class liar in a speech to supporters in New York.
No Secretary of State has been more wrong, more often, and in more places than Hillary Clinton. Her decision spread death, destruction, and terrorism everywhere she touched.
Clinton is also ramping up her attacks on Trump, not just on foreign policy, but on his economic proposals as well.
Every day we see how reckless and careless Trump is. He's proud of it. Well, that's his choice. Except when he's asking to be our president. Then it's our choice.
Many Republican leaders remain critical of Trump, but so far few have abandoned him, says Kyle Kundig.
Yeah, they can't trust Trump, and they also can't trust him to pursue their priorities if, in fact, he is elected. I mean, I think Republicans are making the calculation that in a battle of two lessers, I think they would go with the one that that at least has their party label.
But Trump has work to do to transform himself into a viable general election candidate, says Republican analyst Scott Faulkner.
He needs to broaden his appeal to better engage the American public, give them a vested interest in his election. And he's certainly tapped the outrage. Now he needs to tap the idealism.
Current polls give Clinton an advantage, but they also show a desire for change that could eventually help Trump, says Laura Brown.
There is this also just, I think, utter desperation and sense of many Americans that not just that our system is broken, but that they keep trying to deliver messages to Washington, and Washington doesn't listen.
We are going to make America great again.
Trump's best chance to reset his campaign may come at next month's Republican convention in Cleveland, even though some of the delegates are still looking for a way to deny him the nomination. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
There is another significant candidate in the U.S. presidential race, but we usually don't hear much about him. It's Gary Johnson of the Libertarian Party. Mr. Johnson says he has issues with Donald Trump's positions on immigration and free trade, but will not be resorting to name-calling during the campaign. The Libertarian Party is like a hybrid of the Republican and Democratic parties. Polls show large numbers of U.S. voters hold negative views of both Trump and Clinton.
Now Senegal's capital, which has more than tripled in population in the past 40 years, and the government says it's time to retire the city's most iconic and colorful mode of public transportation. That's the car rapide. The Executive Council for Urban Transport in Dakar says it will replace the decades-old vehicles with more modern buses by 2018. Richie Shyrock reports from Dakar.
The car rapide is a hallmark of Senegal's capital. These privately owned vehicles have offered residents a cheap way to get around the city since 1976, but they may soon be parked for good.
In December 2018, they will no longer exist in circulation in Dakar. It's really part of our cultural heritage, but they don't have the comfort and safety of modern transport. And also, we have environmental concerns. They pollute a lot. You have an example of the pollution here.
Since 2005, Senegal has been rolling out new buses like the Indian-made Tatas and the Chinese brand King Long. But the car rapides have kept barreling through the streets alongside their larger, more modern rivals.
The car rapides are faster than the Tata.
Riders will also have to deal with increased fares. A ride across town that now costs about 25 cents will go up to about 35 cents. Of course, passengers are not the only ones who will be affected.
I love this job. It's my work, and I've done it since I was very young.
But authorities say Musa won't lose his job. The state plans to bring on car rapide drivers and apprentices to operate the new buses after the changeover in 2018. And some people are even suggesting that artists give the new buses car rapide makeovers. This distinctive iconography has evolved over the years. But the car rapide as we know it will soon be in this city's rearview mirror. Ricky Shryock for VOA News in Dakar.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, part of a popular river in Nigeria seems to have dried up almost overnight. The situation has locals understandably concerned. That story after the break.